Hello everyone, myself Sivakrishna. In this video, I am going to explain all the data table activities in UiPath Studio. So let's get started.
Basically, data table we would be calling as a temporary database to maintain the rows and columns. In the UiPath Studio, to create the data table, we can use the activity called build data table. So I have taken the build data table activity. So here in the output data table, I am going to create a variable dt. Basically, using the build data table activity, we can create the data table with columns and rows, or we can create the data table only with columns, or we can create the data table without columns and rows. So let me show you these three options how we can create the data table. To configure the data table, we need to click on data table. So here we can have an option to add the columns, add the rows, and edit the columns information. Basically, to add the column, we can click on the plus icon, then we can add the column details. So if you want to modify the existing column, then we can edit and then we can change the column details. So here I am going to change the column 1 to name and then click on OK. For the second column, I am going to change to salary. I will talk about these options later in the video. So for now, click OK. I am going to add the row information as Hari. Pavan. Okay. Now let's see the data table variable details in the watch panel. So the data table got created. We have a name, salary, and these are the details. A column count is 2, row count is 2, right? Let's see how we can create the data table with only columns. So I am removing the rows information. Click on save and check the data table variable in the watch panel. So we have only 2 columns are available and row count is 0. And let's see how we can create only data table without columns and rows. Click on OK and let's run and check the variable in the watch panel. So here we have a column count is 0 and row count is 0, right? So if you ask, is there any other way to create the data table without using the build data table? Answer would be yes. We can create the data table without using the build data table as well. So for that I am going to take one assign activity. I am passing the variable here and then I am going to mention the expression as new data table. So this way we can create the data table. So let me run and check the variable in the watch panel. So the data table got created and column count is 0, row count is 0. So basically we can copy the one table information to another table as well. So here I have created dt1 with 2 columns and 2 rows, and I have created another data table dt2 which is empty. So let me show you how we can copy the dt1 structure or the column information to the dt2. For that I am going to take one assign activity. So dt2 the dt1 dot clone. So basically the clone will take the structure of the data table, then it will assign to the dt2. So let me run the process and show you these variable details in the watch panel. So if you see here, we have a DT1 having two columns, name and salary, and in the DT2 we have two columns. So the structure got copied. In the same way, we can copy the entire table information to the another table as well. For that, we are going to mention only the variable name, then it will copy the columns and the rows information as well. So if you see here in the DT1 we have name, salary, and these are the details, and if you open the DT2 we will have the same information. Let's talk about the properties are available at the time of creating the data column. We have properties like allow null. So basically it will allow the empty values to this column. Auto increment, basically to set this we need to change the data type to integer, then only we can enable this option. Default value, basically for all the rows if you want to set same value then we can enable this option. Unique option, so basically if you want to set for all the rows the column name should be unique, then we can enable this option. Max length, if you want to set any limit to the data table, like the row limit, if you want to set, you can set the value here, or else you can mention the -1, then we can mention a number of rows information. So let me show you this option one by one. I have enabled allow null. Then it will not give any error, right? Let me delete a unique value. So I enabled it, and then I'm going to mention the values as Pawan, value 10,000. Then I'm going to mention the same name again. So when I click on OK, we will get an exception, right? So I'm disabling this, and I'm going to set the default value to Uma. Then as soon as I click on salary, the name will be automatically populated. Right? Auto increment. So when I enable this option, so the salary details will be automatically increment with 1. So here I'm mention the Uma, then I'm setting the initial value as 10,000, then it will increment automatically, right? Add data column. So basically if you want to add new column to the data table, we can use the add data column. So let me take this add data column. So in the data table section we need to pass the data table variable name. So here we have two options to add the column's name. So if you have a data column object or variable, then we can pass it in the column section, or if you can mention the column name in the column name section. So here I am going to pass the column name as address. Let's run the process and check the DT variable in the watch panel. So here name, salary, address got added, right? Add data row. So basically if you want to add dynamic row information, we can use the add data row. So here I am taking the add data row. So in the data table section we need to pass the data table variable name. So if you have already data row or variable, we can pass it in the data row section, or else we can mention the all the columns information in the array form. So here we have two columns in the existing data table, name and salary. So here I am passing the name as Kiran, and the salary is 34,000. So basically here salary type is of integer, but here we need to pass the array in the string format. So that's the reason I have mentioned the salary in the string format, right? So let me click on save and check the variable details in the watch panel, right? So but while adding the data row, if you want to mention the same data type information, so that also we can do. For that we need to mention one expression object, and then in this salary we can directly mention the 34,000, right? So these details are added. Clear data table. Basically, if you want to remove all the rows information, we can use the clear data table activity. So here we have two rows information available, right? So here I am using the clear data table, so it will remove the rows information but not the structure, like the column information, it won't be deleted. So here the column count is 2 and row count is 0, right? So without using the clear data table, we can do this activity by using the clone property as well. So let me show you that option. So we have data in the dt1. In the dt1 I'm just taking the clone property, so it will capture only the table structure. So let's run and check. Same result we are getting, right? If you want to remove the table columns information as well, then we can create an object. So the column count is 0 and the row count is 0, right? I have created one data table containing name, salary, address, and I have mentioned 5 rows. Basically, we will use the filter data table activity to filter the data based on the single condition or multiple conditions. So let's take a few scenarios and see how this filter data table will works. So I am taking the filter data table activity. So here we need to pass two data tables. One is for source and another one for destination. So basically in the data table section we need to pass the data table for which we wanted to apply the filter. In the filtered data table we can mention the same data table. So what will happen if you mention the same data table? So all the data will be replaced and we will have only the filtered data. So if you mention the new data table, so only the filtered data will be added. So I am going to create a separate data table here. Right, to add the filters we need to click on configure filter. So here we can add the conditions. So let's take in a scenario I wanted to get the employee details whose salary greater than 5,000, right? So here in the column section we need to pass the column name, salary. The name should exactly match with the data table column name. Then we need to choose the operator. So here I am selecting the greater than. In the value section we need to pass the value. So if you see here we have two radio buttons are available, keep and remove. If you enable the keep option, that means the filtered data will be saved in the DT output data. if you enable the remove option, except the filtered data, the remaining data will be saved in the dt output data. So let me show you these two options. So I'm enabled the keep option, click on OK. Let's run the process and see the result in the output panel. So here I have mentioned the dt output. So here we will have a details whose salary greater than 5,000, right? So let me change this option to remove. So now this time it will show you only the employees whose salary less than or equal to 5,000. Right? So here we have another tab, output columns. So far we are extracting all the columns information. But if you wanted to extract only few columns information, like in the name, address, salary, if you wanted to extract only name, then you can mention only the name field here, or multiple column names here you can mention. In the filtered data, I just wanted to extract only the name and address. So here I am going to mention the column names, name, address. So in the row section, I will going to change the option from remove to keep. Click on OK. Let's save, run the process. So now in the output we will have a name and address, right? And if you change this keep to remove, so except name and address, the remaining columns, that is salary, will be extracted. Basically in the filter rows we can mention a number of filters. So here we can click on the plus icon, then we can mention the column name. So here I just wanted to filter the address as well. So I'm going to mention the address column name equal to Hyderabad, right? So this means I wanted to extract the employees whose salary greater than 5,000 and address should be equal to Hyderabad. So Hyderabad 15,000, so Hyderabad 34,000, right? Yeah, so far this logic is working fine. So basically the salary is of integer, so we mention the 5,000 in the numeric format, and the address exactly we mention as we mention in the data table. So if I change the salary type from integer to a string, this expression will not be work. Basically this activity will not be parse or convert the data type to the another data type. So let me show you this scenario. So I am removing the address filter. I am mentioning the same expression, but I am going to change the salary data type from integer to string. Right? So if I run the process, it will not filter any data, it will show empty, right? So because now the salary is in string format and this value will not be matched, right? In the same way, I wanted to extract the employee details who are living in Hyderabad. So here I'm going to mention address equal to, and in the value section I'm going to mention Hyderabad in capital letters. Again, it is not filtering any data because both are not in the same format. So here we have a one format, and in the filter we have another format, right? So this way the filter data table will not be convert the data into the another format, and it won't pass the data from one form another format, right? For each row in data table, if we want to iterate the data table data, we can use the for each row in data table. So in the data table section we need to pass the data table variable. So in the current row basically we will have a iterating row information. So if you want you can create the index. So here I'm creating the index. So let me log the index value. Basically the index value will start from 0. So if I run this process, so it will log the index value from 0. So 0 to 4, right? Get row item. Basically we will use this get row item to extract the column information. So here we need to pass the row value, the current row. Then we need to select the number or name. So here basically we can pass the index of the column or name of the column name. So here I'm selecting the name, and then I'm mentioning the name of the column as name. Then we can create a variable str name. Then I'm going to log this value. So if I run this process, for each row it will log the name of the employee. So it will extracted all the names from the data table. Basically get row item we can use inside the for each row in data table or outside the for each row in data table. Let's see how we can use this get row item outside the for each. So here my requirement is to get the third row salary. So here I am going to mention the expression as dt.row. Third row means second, that is the row, and in the column I am selecting the name, and I am going to select the name of the column name as salary. So I am going to create a variable str salary. Then I am going to take one log message. Str salary. So 5,000. So basically without using the get row activity also we can get these details. So let me show you that. So I am removing the get row item. So here in the salary I am directly passing the expression dt dot row second, and then salary dot toString. So with this expression also we will get the columns information. 5,000. So here inside the for each also we don't need to use the get row item. So directly using the current row object we can get the columns information, right? So let me take one log message here. So here I am going to log all the values: name, address and salary. So current row of name dot to string. I am mentioning the separator as pipe. Current row salary dot to string separator pipe. Current row address dot to string. Right, click on save and let me remove the breakpoint here. So these are the details, right? To extract the column information, we have an activity get row item. So here we can pass the current row, then we can select the number or name. So basically we can pass the column index or column name. So I am selecting the name and then we can create a variable. So this way we can extract the column information. So let me take one log message and let me add the variable name and let's run. So the details were extracted. So in the row section we can add one more expression. So here I am going to add dt dot rows and then row index. So this expression also will get the processing row information. So the details were extracted, right? So in the log message I am going to mention the different ways that we can extract the column information. So I am mentioning the separator as pipe. So using the current row, in the current row I am going to pass the column name. So this is the one approach, and the another approach using the data table and the row index combination. dt dot rows row index and then column name. So using these three approaches we can extract the column information. So the details were extracted, right? Properties for each row in data table. Index, basically it will give the current processing index value. The index value will starting from 0. Max iterations, so basically if you want to set any limit for the iteration, we can set the max iteration value. So let's say in the data table I have 10 rows are available, but I wanted to iterate only 2 rows. In that scenario we can set the max iteration. So here I am going to mention the max iteration as 2. Then here I am going to log the name. So let's see what will happen here. So only 2 names got extracted from the third row. The loop got break, right? The condition, so basically by default it is true, it will iterate all the rows in the data table. But if you set any condition and if that condition is true, then only the iteration will be happen. If the condition is false, then the loop will be break. So let me add one condition here. dt dot rows row index address dot toString equal to Hyderabad. So this means the processing row address should be Hyderabad, then only we should continue the loop, or else we should break the iteration. Click on save. So let me add address in the log message as well. So the first row address is Hyderabad, so the loop got continued, and the second row address is Mumbai, then the loop got break, right? So let me remove the condition. So in my previous video I did explain how to filter the data using the filter data table activity. So there I have taken a scenario to extract the employees information whose salary greater than 5,000, right? So let's see how we can filter the data inside the for each row in data table activity. So for that I am going to take one if condition. So here I am going to write an expression current row salary dot toString. Here I am going to convert the salary into the integer. So in case if you are mentioning the salary in string format or integer format, then this expression will filter the data. Then I am going to mention greater than and then 5,000, right? So here I am going to take one log message. Current row of name dot toString current row of salary dot toString. So if you see here, the employees whose salary is greater than 5,000 details were extracted, right? So let's see how we can add the details into the another data table. So first I'm going to create one empty data table. So dt output, then I'm going to clone inside the if condition. I'm going to take an activity add data row. So here I'm going to pass the data table dt output. So in the array row I am going to mention the expression as current row dot item array. So basically the item array will give the details in the array form. Click on save and let's run the process. So here in the dt output, so we have a details, right? So in the same way, let's add one more filter and current row address dot toString dot to upper equal to Hyderabad. So that means the employees whose salary greater than 5,000 and the address equal to Hyderabad, those details will be extracted. Click on save. So only one employee details are extracted, right? So let's check in the data table. So 24,000, 5,000, right? So here we are extracting all the columns information. Let's say I wanted to extract only few details like a name and salary only. I am going to take one build data table activity to create the data table structure. In the add data row we need to change this expression, so basically it will extract all the columns information, but we need only name and salary, right? So here I am going to mention current row of name dot toString comma current row of salary dot toString. So if you see the DTA output data table, we have details, name and salary, and these are the details. So this way we can filter the data and then we can get the information. Continue activity. If we want to skip the current row processing based on the certain conditions, we can use the continue activity. Let's take in a scenario. I just wanted to display all the rows information in the log message except the rows which any of the column value showing empty. So let's see how we can implement this logic. To add the condition, we need to use the if activity. So in the condition, I am going to write an expression to verify if any of the column value is showing empty. So this is the final expression to verify if name column value is empty or salary column is empty or address column is empty. So if this condition is true, then I need to skip the row processing. So for that I am going to take continue activity. I am going to take log message to display the row details. Right, so let's click on save and let's run the process and verify the output. In the output, basically we can see all the employee details except Pawan because Pawan's salary showing empty, right? Break activity. If you want to exit the loop based on the certain condition, we can use this activity. Let's take an example. If processing rows address is Chennai, I want to exit the loop. So let's see how we can build this logic. So in the if condition, I am going to change this expression current row of address equal to Chennai. click on save. So if this condition is true, I want to exit from the loop. So for that I am going to take break activity. So let's run the process and verify the output. So in the output panel we can see first three employee details, right? So as the fourth employee address belongs to Chennai, so the loop got break. So the remaining details were not logged in the output panel. So let's see how we can iterate the data table using the for each activity. Using the for each activity, basically we can iterate both data table rows and columns. So let's see first how we can iterate the data table rows. So here we need to pass the expression dt dot rows to iterate the data table rows. Then the argument type will automatically changes as per the input that we provided. In case if it is not reflected, then we need to change the argument type by clicking the browse for types. Then we can select the data row. Item name. So basically the processing row information is available in the current data row variable. So let's see how we can log the employee details, right? So let me take one log message. Current data row of name dot toString right. So let's click on save and run the process. All the employee details are logged, right? So let's see how we can iterate the columns using the for each activity. So here in the object we need to pass the expression as dt dot columns. So the argument type changed automatically. So the columns information is available in the current data column, right? So here I wanted to log the column name and its data type. So let me write an expression for that. Current data column dot column name column dot data type dot toString, right? So in the output we can see the column name and its data type, right? If we want to update or edit the column value in the data table, we can use the update row item. Basically we can use this activity inside or outside the for each row in data table activity. So here I have created one data table containing name, salary and address. For the second row, this salary showing empty, right? So let's see how we can update the salary value. Take update row item activity. So here in the value section, which value you wanted to update. So here I am mentioning 45,000, and then here we need to mention the row in which row you wanted to update the column value. So I am going to mention the row as 1, because in the data table the row index will start from 0. So in that way it is 0 1. So we need to update the salary at the second row. That means the index value is 1. So that's the reason I have mentioned the row index as 1. And then in the mentioned row, for which column you wanted to update the value. So here we can provide the column index or name. So I'm going to mention the name as salary. So let's run the process and verify the output. So in the second row, name is Pawan and salary 45,000. The value got updated, right? Now, so in the second row, the address is showing Mumbai. So let's see how we can change these two values. So the first thing, I want to update the salary to 45,000, and then I want to change the address from Mumbai to Pune. So let's see how we can do that. So I'm just copying this activity. So here I'm going to change to Pune. Row will be the same and the column will be address, right? So let's verify the output. So the details got updated. So initially the salary is empty, now it got updated to 45,000, and initially the address was Mumbai and it changed to Pune. So this way we can edit or update the column values using the update row item. Let's take in a scenario. I have created one data table containing quantity and unit cost. The total column values are showing empty. So I just wanted to update the total value by multiplying the quantity into unit cost, and then I want to update the total. So let's see how we can do that. As we need to update all the values, so we need to take for each row in data table or for each activity. So I'm going to take for each row in data table. So here I am going to pass the data table variable name dt, and then I am going to take update row item. So here we need to mention the total value, right? So here I am going to write an expression convert dot 2 into 32 current row of quantity into convert to decimal of current row of unit cost. After calculation, I am going to change to string, right? Then the row value would be current row and the column value would be total, right? And then let me take one log message to put breakpoint. So let's run the process and verify the output. So here if you observe, the quantity and unit cost and the total value is 6.8, and the total value got updated for each row, right? Let's take another scenario. I have created one data table containing marks and results. So if marks below 40, then I want to update as fail. So if greater than 40, I want to update as pass. Right? So let's say how we can update. So as we need to update for each row, so we need to take for each row in data table. So here we need to pass the data table variable name and then take update data row. So basically here we need to verify the marks less than 40, then we should set fail. If greater than 40, then we should set pass, right? So for that we can take an activities like if activity switch activity. Instead of that we can use the ternary condition. So if you are not aware about that, I have created one video on that, so you can check that video. So let's write a ternary condition in the value section. So here I am going to write an expression convert data to int 32 current row marks dot to string less than 40 fail, else pass. Okay, click on save. Then the row value would be current row. So here we need to select your column index or name. I am going to select, so here I am going to select the column index as 1. Then we are good to run the process. So let me take one log message. Put a breakpoint here. So let's run the process and verify the output. So marks 41 pass, 32 fail, 98 pass, 76 pass, right? Editing or updating the column value can be done without using the update row item as well. So let me show you that option, how we can update the column values without using the update row item. So let me copy this value, remove update row item activity. So let me take assign activity, the value would be the same. So here I am going to use the current row and then I am going to pass the column name. So here in the column name result, right? So let's save the process and run and verify the output. So marks 41 result pass, so marks 32 result fail, right? By using the data table and the row index combination, also we can update the column value. So first let me create a row index here. And then so here we need to pass the expression dt dot rows and then row index, and then we need to mention the column name. So let's run the process and verify the output. So the same details were reflecting, right?
If we want to remove any of the column information in the data table, we can use the remove data column activity. I have created one data table containing name, salary and address. So let's see how we can remove the column information using the remove data column activity. Let's click on OK and let's take remove data column activity. So here we need to provide the data table in which you wanted to remove the column information. So I'm mentioning the DT variable name. The removing column information we can provide in two ways. We can mention the column name or we can mention the column index number. In the data table, the column index number will start from 0. Name column index is 0, salary column index is 1 and address column index is 2. First see how we can remove the column information based on the column name. I would like to remove the address column in the data table. So I am going to mention the address in the column name field. Let's take output data table as a text activity to convert the data table into text format. So the output will return in the string format. So I am going to create a variable str text and let's take one log message to display the data table text in the output panel. Right? So let's execute the process and verify the output. In the build data table, we have three columns are available and after removing the address column in the data table, so we can find only two columns are available in the output panel, right? Now let's see how we can remove the column information based on the column index number. So now I would like to remove the salary column in the data table. So the salary column is in second position, so that means column index is 1. So here I am going to remove address. In the column number field I am going to mention 1. Now let's run the process and verify the output. So in the output panel, so the salary column is not available, right? So in the same way, if you want to remove the row information in the data table, we can use the remove data row activity. So let's take remove data row activity. So here we need to pass the data table in which you wanted to remove the data row information. So here we can pass the deleting row information in two ways. We can pass the row or else we can mention the row index. So in the data table, the row index also is starting from 0. The first row index is 0, second row index is 1 and third row index is 2, right? I would like to remove the last row. So let's see how we can remove the last row based on the row index. So last row it is the third row, right? So that means the row index is 2, right? Let's save and run the process and verify the output. In the build data table, so we have three rows are available, Hari, Banu and Navin. And after removing the last row, that is Navin, so in the output panel we have only Hari and Banu details are available, right? Now let's see how we can remove the row information based on the row. So here I am removing the row index. So the row information we can provide with this expression dt dot rows and then we need to provide the row index. Now I would like to remove the second row. So that means the row index is 1, right? So if I execute the remove data row activity, Banu details should be removed and we should have only Hari and Naveen, right? Let's save and run the process and verify the output. So in the output panel, we can see only Hari and Naveen details. So Banu details got deleted. Let's take in a real-time scenario. I have created two data tables, DT1 containing name, salary and address, and DT2 containing only name. So I would like to compare the DT2 names in the DT1. So in case if name matches in the DT1, I want to remove the matched rows in the DT1. So let's see how we can implement this logic. So first we need to iterate the DT2. So for that I am going to take for each row in data table activity. So here we need to pass the DT2. Then we need to verify the processing name in the DT1. For that I am going to take lookup data table activity. So we are going to verify the details in the DT1, right? So in the data table section I am passing DT1. So we need to verify the name in the name column. So I mentioned in the column name as name. The lookup value will be the processing name. So current row of name dot toString, right? Then it will return the matched row index. So for that I am going to create a variable to store the matched row index, int row index. In case if the processing name is not available in the DT1 in the mentioned name column, then it will return the -1 as a matched row. So let's take one if condition to verify the details are matched or not. So here I am going to mention the condition int row index equal to -1, means no rows are matched. So I am going to take one log message to display the message like no details are matched. So row details are not matched for processing name. So if it is not -1 means so the name is identified in the DT1 in the name column. So here in the else condition we will going to delete the matched row, right? So here I am going to take a remove data row activity. So we need to remove the data row in the DT1 and the row index will be int row index, right? So let's verify the DT1 and DT2 details. So in the DT2 we have Hari, Kiran and Naveen. In the DT1 we have Hari, Banu and Naveen. In the both the data tables, Hari and Naveen details are common. After executing the process, so Hari and Naveen details should be removed and we should have only Banu details in the DT1, right? So let's click on OK and execute the process and verify the output. So if you see the log, so row matched for Hari and row details are not matched for Kiran and row details matched for Naveen. After removing Hari and Naveen details, so we have only Banu details in the DT1, right?
Remove duplicate rows activity is used to remove the duplicate rows in the data table. I have created one data table containing name and salary and I have mentioned two duplicate rows. So let's see how we can remove these duplicate rows using the remove duplicate rows activity. So in the remove duplicate rows, so we need to provide the input data table for which you wanted to remove the duplicate rows. In the output section, if you want, you can add the same data table, or else you can create a separate data table. So I am creating the new data table dt output. So let me take one log message. So let's run the process and verify the output. So this is the input data table. So before executing the remove duplicate rows, so we have 3 rows and 2 are duplicates. This is the output data table after executing the remove duplicate rows. So here we have only 2 rows and those are unique, right? If you see the input data table, the duplicate rows names are in the same format. If I change the one name format to uppercase, right, the duplicate rows activity will be treated as a unique rows, right, because the names are in the different format. One is the regular format and another one is uppercase. So let's execute this process and see how we will get the output. So this is the input data table, and after executing the remove duplicate rows, so we have the same data available in the output data table as well, because in the first row hurry in a regular format, in the second row the hurry is in uppercase, right? To resolve this issue, first we need to convert the names in one format, either in a lowercase or uppercase. Then we can apply the remove duplicate rows. So let's see how we can convert these names in one format, right? Let's click on OK. So let me take for each row in data table. I'm passing the input data table. So I'm going to take one assign activity to convert the names in uppercase. Current row of name. So this expression will convert all the names into the uppercases. Then let's run the process and verify the output. So this is the input data. So all the names are converted into the uppercase. Then after executing the remove duplicate rows, the output data table containing only 2 rows, those are unique, right? Output data table as text activity is used to convert the data table into text format. This activity separates each column with comma and each row with new line. I have created one data table containing name, salary and address. So let's see how we can convert this data table into the text format using the output data table as text activity. So let's click on OK. So I am taking output data table as text activity. So here we need to provide the data table variable name. So the output will coming in the string format. So I am going to create a variable str_dt text. So I am taking one log message to display the output in the output panel. So let's run the process and verify the output. So this is the text after converting the data table into the text, right? So let's continue. So if you observe the output panel, so each column is separated with comma and each row is separated with new line, right? Generate data table from text. Activity is used to convert the text into the data table. So let me take generate data table from text activity. So for this activity, the input will be the string and output would be the data table. So let's click on options. So let me add sample text here. So here we have a few options are available. Table options, auto detect column types, use first row as column headers, ignore first column. So as per our input data, we can choose these table options. We have few data formatting options are available. CSV comma separated value. So if you are reading the CSV file, so basically in CSV file each value is separated with one separator. So as per the CSV file, so we can select the separator, then we can convert the data into the data table. The other option is custom. So here we need to choose the column separator and the row separator, and we have a fixed width column. So based on the column length, we can convert the data into the data table. So in this case, I am selecting the table option as use first row as column headers, and then data formatting options I am selecting custom. So the column separator would be the comma and the row separator would be new line, right? So let's click on preview. Now the data is coming in the tabular format, right? So let's click on OK. So here the input text would be strdt text, and for the output I am going to create a separate data table, dt output. So let's save and run the process and verify the output. So in the watch panel, let me add dt output variable as well. For dt output variable also, we have 3 columns and the same data is reflecting, right? Let's take a real-time scenario. We have a dispatcher and performer. In the dispatcher, basically we are converting the data table into the text and we are giving that text to the performer. In the performer, we are converting that text back to the data table and then we are continuing the further activities. In this scenario, so before converting this data table into the text in the dispatcher, we should take care few things before converting. So as output data table as a text activity separates the column with comma and rows with new line, right? So we should make sure these two separators should not present in the columns data. So if we have these separators in the column data, at the time of converting the data table to text, we will not have any issues. But at the time of converting the text to data table, the format will not coming in the expected format. So let me show you one example here. So in the first column, I am going to add one comma and then I am going to add tg. Let's click on OK. Let's save and run the process. So in the data table, basically we have 3 columns, right? So if you check the dt output variable, so we have 4 columns are available, right? So that is because of this extra comma. To resolve this issue, so before converting this data table into the text, we should replace this comma or new line with a different separator. Then we should convert the data table into the text. So let's see how we can do that. So I am taking the for each row in data table activity. So here I am going to pass input data table dt. To replace the separator, I am going to take one assign activity. So here current row of address. So actually in the address we have a separator, comma separator, right? So here I am going to replace comma with pipe. So what will happen? So it will replace the comma with pipe in the address if address has comma, right? So let me click on save and run, and let's verify the output. So this is the input data table. So the address replace the comma with pipe, right? And this is the output data table. So we have only 3 columns and the data is coming in the proper format, right? If you want to sort the data table based on the column, we can use the sort data table activity. I have created one data table containing name and salary. So let's see how we can sort the data table based on the name column and the salary column. So let's click on OK. For sorting the data table, I'm using the sort data table activity. So here we need to provide the input data table for which you wanted to sort the data table. In the output section, if you want, you can use the same input data table, or else you can create the separate data table. I'm using the same input data table. And then we need to provide the column information on which basis you wanted to sort the data table. So here we can provide the column or column index, or else we can mention the column name. So I'm mentioning the column name as name, and we can choose the order. We have 2 options, ascending and descending. So I'm choosing the ascending order. To display the output, so I'm going to first take the output data table as a text to convert the data table into the text format. I'm entering the dt, so the output will come in the text format. I'm creating the string variable str text, and then I'm going to take one log message to display the output in the output panel, right? So let's run the process and verify the output. So this is the input data table, and after applying the sort data table, so the data table got sort on the basis of name in the ascending order, right? So let's change the order to descending and verify the output. Now data got sorted on the basis of name in the descending order, right? Now let's sort the data table on the basis of salary column. So I'm changing the order to ascending, and then let's run the process and verify the output. Now the data table got sort on the basis of salary, right, in the ascending order. Now let's change the order to descending. Now the data table got sort on the basis of salary in the descending order, right?
If you want to search any specific value in the data table to return the matched row index, and then to extract any of the column information from the matched row, we can use the lookup data table activity. I have created one data table containing name, salary, and address. Let's see how we can search and return the matched row index using the lookup data table activity. Let's take lookup data table activity. So here we need to pass the data table, and then we need to mention the column information in which column you need to search the value, right? So here the column information we can provide in three ways. We can mention the column variable name, column name, and column index number. I'm going to mention the column name as address. Lookup value means what value you wanted to search in the data table in the mentioned column. So here I'm going to mention lookup value as Pune. The output of the lookup data table activity will return the row index. It is in the integer format. So let me create a variable to store the match index. So let me take log message to display the matched row index in the output panel. If the lookup value is found in the data table in the mentioned column, then the lookup data table activity will return the matched row index. In case the lookup value is not available in the data table in the mentioned column, then it will return the -1 as a matched row index. So let's run the process and verify the output. If you see the output panel, the matched row index written as 2. Pune is available in the third row. As row index starting from 0, the Pune row index is 2. So the lookup data table extracted row index is correct. Let's search with another city which is not available in the data table. So let's run the process and see how we will get the matched row index. So matched row index is -1. So Mumbai is not available in the address column, right? In case in the mentioned column, if we have a duplicate values, lookup data table activity will return the first matched row index only. So let me show you that scenario. So let me change Chennai to Pune. Now Pune is available in the second row and third row. So let's search with Pune and let's see what row index we will get. So it is returning the matched row index as 1, right? So actually the Pune is available in the second row and third row, but the lookup data table activity is returning the first matched row index. While searching the value using the lookup data table activity, the lookup value should exactly match with the
value in the data table. Let's say in the data table we are mentioning the name in regular format, but if you are trying to search the same name with lower characters or upper characters in the lookup data table activity, then the lookup data table activity will not be considered as a matched one, then it will return the matched row as -1. So let me show you that scenario as well. So here I am going to change the column name to name, and then I am going to mention the lookup value as Pawan in upper characters. So in the data table, actually Pawan name is available in the third row, but as we are mentioned in the upper characters in the lookup data table activity, so it is not considering as a matched one, then it is returning the matched row index as -1. Now let's see how we can extract the column information from the matched row. So let me change the lookup value to Pawan in the regular format. So here in the target column section, we need to provide in which column you wanted to extract the information. So here I am going to mention the column name as address, and then we need to create a variable to store the cell value. Str cell value. Then let me take another log message to display the cell value. Now let's run the process and verify the output. So the matched row index is 2 and the cell value is Pune, right? Now let's change the column name to salary, and let's run the process and see how we will get the output. So if you see here, we are getting the exception. So let me open the exception message. Wrong variable type assigned. So basically for cell value, we have created the variable with string type, but it is expecting the integer type. So let's stop the process. Basically, the target column data type in the data table and the cell value variables data type should exactly match. So here in the target column name, we have mentioned the column name as salary. In the data table, the salary data type is integer, but the cell value variable data type we mentioned as string. So that's the reason we are getting this issue. So let me change the cell value data type to integer, and let's run the process and verify the output. So if you see the output panel, the matched row index is 2 and cell value is 57,800. So the details are extracted correctly.
If we want to merge one data table information into another data table, we can use the merge data table activity. I have created two data tables, DT1 containing name, salary and address, DT2 containing name and salary. Let's see how we can merge DT1 information into DT2. So let's take merge data table activity. So here we need to provide the source data table and destination data table. Here I would like to merge DT1 with DT2, right? So source data table would be DT1 and destination data table would be DT2. If you see the properties for merge data table activity, we have a missing schema action. Means in case source data table and destination data table schema or table structure is different, what action needs to be taken? Here we have four options are available: add, ignore, error, add with key. So let's talk about these options one by one. First option, add. If you select add option, in case in the source data table if we have extra columns are available, those columns will be added to the destination data table, and then in the existing destination rows null value will be assigned to the newly added column. Then the source data table rows will be added to the destination data table. So in the DT1, that is the source data table, we have a name, salary and address, and DT2, that is the destination data table, we have name and salary. So here address column is available in the DT1, but in the DT2 we don't have address column. So after executing the merge data table activity, first it will add the address column in the DT2. For the existing rows, null value will be assigned to the address column. Then DT1 all rows will be added to the DT2. So let's click on OK. Let's take output data table as text activity to convert destination data table into text format. So let me create a string variable here. And let's take one log message to display the destination data table text in the output panel. Let's run the process and verify the output. So this is DT2 before executing the merge data table activity, and after executing the merge data table activity. So this is DT2 after executing the merge data table activity. Address column has been added and the null value has been assigned to the existing rows, and then the source data table rows, that is the DT1 rows, all are added to the DT2, right? Let's continue. These are the DT2 information after executing the merge data table activity. Second option, ignore. In case in the source data table if we have extra columns are available, those column information will be ignored to add in the destination data table. So let me execute the process and let's verify the output. So in the DT1 basically we have a address column is available, right? So those column details got skipped and only name and salary details got added to the DT2. And this is the information for DT2 after executing the merge data table activity. Next option, error. In case source data table schema and the destination table schema is different, merge data table activity will throw an exception. So let's run the process. We are getting the exception, right? Last option, add with key. In case in the source data table, if we have a primary key is available in any of the column, that will be added to the destination column as well. Then it will going to add source data table rows into the destination data table, and while adding, in case if any duplicate information is available on the primary key column, those rows will be skipped and the remaining rows will be added. In case in the source data table, if you don't have primary keys available, so it will going to add extra column details to the destination data table, and then it will going to add all the source data table rows in the destination data table. Here in the source data table, I don't have created the primary key. So let's run the process and verify how we will get the output. So this is DT2 after executing the merge data table activity. Address column has been added and the null value has been assigned to the existing rows. And then the source data table rows, that is the DT1 rows, all are added to the DT2. So in this simple term, in case in the source data table, if you don't have primary key, the add with key option will be act as a add option, right? So let me add primary key on DT1 for name column. So let me take assign activity. So here I am going to mention DT1 dot primary key, and here I am going to mention the expression as DT1 dot column and name, right? So here in the DT1 basically we have name details like Hari, Banu and Navin, right? In DT2 we have Karthik, Giri and Hari. So when I execute the merge data table activity, so first primary key will be added to the name column in the DT2. Then it will going to add all the DT1 rows to the DT2. But as we added the primary key on the name column, and as Hari name is already available in the DT2, the Hari details in the DT1 will be skipped and the remaining details will be added in the DT2. So let's run the process and verify the output. So this is DT2 before executing the merge data table activity, and after executing, so address column got added and null value has been assigned to the existing row. So from the DT1 Hari details got skipped because of primary key. So basically the primary key will not allow the duplicate rows. So these are the details for DT2 after executing the merge data table activity. If you want to combine two data tables based on the common columns, we can use the join data tables activity. I have created two data tables, DT1 containing name, salary and address, DT2 containing name, phone number and age. Let's see how we can join these two data tables using the join data tables activity. So let's take join data tables activity. Click on join wizard. Here we need to provide data table 1 and data table 2 which you will going to join, right? So here in the data table 1 section I am going to mention DT1. In data table 2 section I am going to mention DT2. Then we need to specify the common column in the data table 1 and data table 2 on which column basis you wanted to join the both the tables. So here in this case, name is the common column in the data table 1 and data table 2. So I am going to mention name in the table 1 column and table 2 column. Here there is no need of mentioning the same column name in the both the data tables. We can mention with any name, but while mentioning the common columns, we can specify the column name that we are following in both the data tables. So let's change the column name in the DT2, then we will mention the different column in the table 2 section. So I am going to replace name with employee name. Click on OK. Then I am going to change the name with employee name for table 2 column, right? Then we need to choose the operator. So we have multiple operators are available. Based on your requirement, we can choose the operator. So here I am selecting the equal operator. We have three types of joins are available: inner join, left join, and full join. So let's talk about these joins one by one. Inner join means it will return the matched records from the data table 1 and data table 2. So it will return only the matched records only. To save the output, I am going to create a separate data table, dt output. Then click on OK. So let's take output data table as a text activity to convert output data table into text format. So let me create a string variable to store the output data table text. Let's take log message to display the output data table text in the output panel. Right. Before executing the process, so let's review the DT1 and DT2 name details. As we are joining the data tables on the basis of name column, in the DT1 we have a Hari, Banu and Navin details are available. In the DT2 we have Karthik, Giri and Hari details are available. In both the data tables, Hari details are common, right? So after executing this process, we will get Hari details from DT1 and DT2. So let's click on OK. Let's save and run the process and verify the output. So these are the Hari details from DT1 and these are the Hari details from the DT2, right? So let's continue the process. So in the output panel, you can see the Hari details from the DT1 and DT2. Left join means it will return the all the rows information from the data table 1 in case if the name matches with data table 2, it will return the data table 2 information. In case if the name is not matched with the data table 2, for the data table 2 columns, empty or null value will be assigned. So let's click on OK and run the process and verify the output. So before executing the join data table activity, so first verify what are all the details are available in the DT1. In the DT1, we have a Hari, Banu and Navin details are available, right? So after executing, So as Hari also is available in the data table 2, so we will get the data table 2 details. So Banu and Navin details are not available in the data table 2. For data table 2 columns, null value will be assigned. So let's continue. So this is the output data table. So as Hari is available in both the data tables, so we have a Hari details from the both the data tables. So we have a table 1 details, and for table 2 details null values are assigned, right? Let's continue. Output data table text for left join. Full join means it will return data table 1 rows and data table 2 rows. In case in both the data tables if name details are matched, then it will return the matched details together. In case if the details are not matched, for DT1, DT2 details will be shown as empty or null. For DT2, DT1 details will be shown as empty or null. So let's click on OK and let's run the process and verify the output. So this is the output data table. So as Harry is available in both the tables, so we have both the table information for Harry. So this is the data table 1 information. So as Banu is not available in the data table 2, so the data table 2 details are showing null values, right? So these are the data table 2 information. So as Karthik is not available in the data table 1, so null values are assigned to the data table 1 columns, right? So let's continue. So these are the output data table information for the full join. Hope this video is helpful. Thanks for watching this video. Have a nice day.